All right, today we are digging into a story that's just been everywhere online. It's this wild tale of ecological engineering that honestly sounds almost too good to be true. We're talking about the million rabbit desert myth. So just picture this for a second. The story goes that China released a million rabbits into this huge, totally barren desert in Inner Mongolia. No fences, no irrigation, no fancy tech, just sand, wind, and a million rabbits. I mean, that sounds like a recipe for total disaster, right? But here's where the story takes a turn. Instead of disaster, the internet claims it was a miracle, a success so unbelievable that experts from all over the world are supposedly flying in to see how they did it. And get this, the claim is that in less than a decade they transformed over 15,000 hectares of barren sand into lush green land. That's about 37,000 acres. An area that was basically lifeless was just reborn. The whole idea behind the myth, the thing that makes it so compelling, is that this wasn't just about planting stuff. No, the story says the rabbits kicked off this completely self-sustaining ecosystem, a perfect little loop where water, plants, animals, and even people all started working together in harmony. So how on earth did a bunch of rabbits supposedly pull this off? Well, the myth paints them as these tiny, furry eco-engineers. They chew on old willows, which acted like biological pruning, encouraging stronger new growth. And of course, their manure was like this super-powered organic fertilizer, pumping the dead sand full of the nitrogen and phosphorus that life needs to get started. It's a simple, elegant, nature-powered solution.
I mean, you gotta admit, it's an incredible story. Rabbits as little terraformers, turning a desert green using nothing but their instincts. It's a perfect ecological fable, almost too perfect.
And that right there is the big question that flips this whole thing on its head. When a story seems this neat, this perfect, offering such a simple fix for a massive problem like desertification, you have to start asking, where's the proof? Where are the official reports? Well, when researchers actually started to dig for that proof, they found nothing. Zilch. No official announcements, no government papers, no scientific studies about a million rabbits being set loose in the desert. The conclusion, this amazing tale is just that, a story. A really powerful and fascinating viral myth that probably grew out of a real project that's, frankly, even more impressive. So let's peel back the layers of this internet myth and get to the truth. Because what's actually happening in China's deserts is a project on a scale that is just staggering. It's decades of hard work, and it's known as China's Great Green Wall. The real story is officially called the 3 North Shelter Belt Program. This isn't some quick fix with rabbits. It's a huge, state-run project that was launched way, way back in 1978. The goal has always been to build a massive belt of trees and vegetation to literally hold back the deserts from expanding. And just look at this timeline to understand the commitment here. It started in 1978 and has been going for over 40 years. They just hit a huge milestone this year by completing the encirclement of the Taklamakan Desert. And they're not even done. The target for completion is 2050. Just take a second to wrap your head around that number. 66 billion trees planted so far. This isn't a small experiment. This is one of the biggest ecological engineering projects in the history of humanity, period. And it's working. It's having a real, measurable impact. A recent study found that all this planting is actually turning the edge of the desert into a carbon sink. You can see here, during the wet season, all that new greenery pulls CO2 out of the atmosphere, dropping it from 416 down to 413 parts per million. It might seem like a small number, but on this scale, it's a massive shift. Okay, so if the million rabbit story is a myth, where did it even come from? It didn't just appear out of thin air. Well, the answer probably lies in one specific, incredibly successful part of this bigger project: the restoration of the Kabuki Desert. This is where we solve the mystery. See, in the Kabuki Desert, they've managed to turn over 6,400 square kilometers green over the last 30 years. It's an incredible, well-documented success story, and it's almost certainly the little seed of truth from which the giant rabbit myth grew. And here it is. This is the aha moment. Rabbits are involved in the Kabuki model, but, and this is the key, not in the way the myth says. They're farming Rex rabbits in controlled, standardized centers. It's part of a whole economic program to create jobs and sustainable businesses for locals. They are not wild, furry terraformers.
This is what reality looks like. The Kabuki model isn't a simple trek. It's a complex, smart system that weaves together ecological restoration with real economic development. Things like tourism, solar farms, agriculture, and yes, rabbit farming. It's about making the desert both green and profitable.
So this brings us to the really big picture. The whole story of the rabbits, both the fantasy and the reality, plugs directly into a much larger global conversation about how we're going to fix our planet's biggest environmental problems. Think about it. The viral myth was so popular because it represented one side of this debate, the low-tech, let nature do the work approach. On the other side, you have the big push for high-cost, advanced technology like giant carbon capture machines. What the real Kubushi model shows is that maybe the best path is a mix of both, using nature but helping it along with smart engineering and solid economic planning. What's really fascinating is that this kind of ecological success is becoming a new form of global influence, or soft power. Some analysts have even come up with a great name for it: rabbit diplomacy. It's this idea that you can build international partnerships by sharing these green solutions, a diplomacy built not on military power, but on rabbit droppings and microbes. Which brings us right back to where we started. That viral myth of the million rabbits was popular because it gave us a simple, hopeful, natural answer. The reality is way more complicated, but in a way, it's even more hopeful. It suggests that the future isn't a choice between a high-tech lab and a humble rabbit. It's about figuring out how to weave them together. The only real question left is, can we learn how to do that fast enough? Thanks for tuning in.